Thank you for joining me in this video about the Role-Playing Overhaul Requiem for Skyrim The Elder Scrolls. And you'll be seeing some gameplay in the background, but my main goal for this video is to give a big picture look at what I'm trying to accomplish with this new series that I'm making. So about 5 years ago I made some videos for Skyrim Requiem. I took a long break from the game. I'm back now. I thought it'd be fun to make some new content. So there's three things that I wanted to talk about here. First is the character that I'll be playing. Second, the goals and what I hope this series will accomplish for other people, and third, a meta discussion of what it looks like to try and make a really powerful character within Requiem mod for Skyrim. So first, about this specific character, I'm putting in some self-imposed restrictions to try and keep the game challenging for as long as possible. I won't be doing any factions like the Companions or Dark Brotherhood, etc., because it makes it possible to get some really overpowered gear early on, which kind of takes away some of the early game fun. And just kind of the way that Requiem works, because the world is unscaled, it has nothing to do with your level, that the early game you tend to be kind of underpowered, the enemies seem very strong, but as you hit level 15, 20, 25, you start to outlevel a lot of the enemies and they become kind of trivial, with some exceptions like the super late game content. But my goal is to keep that early game feel for as long as possible. So second, the goals that I have for this, well, first is I just wanted to have a challenge to make the game and play the game in the way that I find fun. And I found that I tend to re-roll characters in Requiem really often, because the early game to me is the most fun part, because it feels like that's where your tactics and your call it your twitch skill at playing the game is the highest. And to me, at least, Skyrim is primarily a combat game. Other people love the role-playing aspects. That's kind of fun too, but that's not the main reason that I play it. I want to have a combat-focused game, kind of like an open-world Dark Souls, if such a thing were possible. So that's what I'm trying to do with it. What might be useful for other people is a common complaint or question that people who are new to Requiem have. Maybe they have a lot of experience with Skyrim, maybe they've played with other mods, but they find the early game really punishing because it's not what they're used to. So by keeping the early game feel for as long as possible, I'm hoping that this will be a useful resource that other people can look at and say, hey, okay, that's one way to get through the content. Certainly not the only way, but this is how I like to do it. And so hopefully other people who enjoy a similar style of gameplay will get something out of it that way as well. Then finally, while I'm making an intentionally somewhat underpowered character, you'll see some of the specifics as we go along. It's obviously melee based primarily, and I'm not going to be doing a whole lot with spells, and I'm not going to be doing any crafting, I'm not going to be doing any enchantings, no alchemy, etc. But if you wanted to make a really powerful character and you didn't care about any of those restrictions, Requiem certainly makes it possible to do that. So one path toward a really powerful character is the crafting systems in Requiem are very strong, and in the late game become somewhat overpowered, especially if you take several of them at once. Alchemy in particular, because it's possible to harvest several different ingredients off of each plant you pick, then it's really quick to gather a lot of ingredients. And if early on you take 2 perks in alchemy that make it possible to identify all effects of your ingredients just by eating one, then it becomes really, really fast to start making strong potions, and it pretty much breaks the economy of the game really quickly if you decide to focus on it that way, because for the first few levels, if you so chose, you could run around in the fields outside Whiterun, make some loops over into other areas where there's good ingredients to pick, go back to town, make potions, sell the potions, and pretty soon the biggest problem you have is finding vendors who still have gold for you to take with the potions. You use all that gold to train up your skills, and then by level 10 or 15 you may not have done much of any combat whatsoever, but your character is suddenly very, very powerful. And enchanting and smithing have a slower build-up because early on they're not particularly great. The ingredients for enchanting are quite a bit rarer than plants, obviously, so it can take a while before you're at the content where you can actually get those ingredients. But once you kind of get it rolling, then enchanting becomes a really easy way to build up a lot of gold. And in the late game, you can create better equipment than really anything you're going to find. Similarly with smithing, it's very slow to level up early on because making iron daggers is not really a viable way to level your smithing early on, but once you get it up to about 50, then suddenly smithing just has this exponential growth. You gain a bunch of levels really quickly once you can craft jewelry, and then after that, again, the economy is largely ruined. And maybe ruined is too strong of a word because there's still fun to be had, and there's still some really high level content where you'll need the best stuff in the game in order to have an easy time of it. But for me personally, I found that by using these crafting systems, I was kind of ruining my characters for myself, because I'd enjoy the first about 10 levels where it felt really challenging, but by the time that I had practically infinite gold and I was mostly just spending my time on crafting, I was not enjoying the game anymore. So this playthrough series is me trying to fix this problem that I suppose I have created for myself, but also as a byproduct, I'm hoping that by showcasing what the early game looks like and maintaining the early game for a longer time, because I'll basically only be using found items, stuff that I can go and get from raiding dungeons and so on, that it keeps that early game aspect for a longer time. I won't be showing every single detail as I go through this, because personally I find Let's Plays that have multiple hour-long videos that are kind of undirected, I find them hard to watch, so that's not the kind of content I want to create. But hopefully by showing some of the highlights on the journey that I take with this character, you'll have some fun with it as I do as well. So next up, I'll be doing Bleak Falls Barrow at level 1, mostly just to show that you can, and then we'll continue from there. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.